Imagine a world where fire never sparked. Humanity stays in darkness. Without fire, early humans would never master cooking, keeping meals raw. Cold nights would be relentless, forcing tribes to huddle in endless shivers. Shelters would stay simple, lacking hearths, relying solely on natural caves. Without fire, metalworking would never arise, keeping tools stone sharp forever. The night sky would dominate, stars guiding nomadic routes across barren lands. Language would evolve slower, lacking the communal glow of campfire stories. Clothing would remain raw hides, never hardened by fire-treated leather. Nutrition would stay limited, digestive adapted to raw plant and meat. Disease would thrive, as sterilization never existed to cleanse wounds. Nighttime predators would dominate, hunting humans as easily as gazelles. Societies would form around daylight, each day a precious battlefield. Travel would be limited to sunlit routes, avoiding shadows at all costs. Art would consist of carvings and pigments, never illuminated by flame. Music would echo in caves, reverberating off stone walls forever. Rituals would lack fire dances, focusing on moonlight and wind. Agriculture would struggle, cold soil never warmed to boost germination. Harvest festivals would be silent, no bonfires to celebrate abundance. Winter would be harsher, no fire to melt ice for water. Water purification would rely on filtration, never boiled to kill germs. Children would grow up fearing darkness, never learning to tame night. Inventors would never dream of engines, as combustion remained impossible. Transportation would stay foot-powered, no wheels spun by heated metal. Cities would never rise, no bricks hardened by blazing ovens. Architecture would be limited to timber and stone, never cemented. Power would remain natural, wind and water, never harnessed by fire. Lighting would be moon and stars, no lanterns to pierce gloom. Night watches would be impossible, patrols would dissolve before dusk. Stories would be whispered, never shouted around crackling flames. Would lack fire gods, worship focusing on sun and earth. Religion would revolve around daylight, rituals timed to sunrise. Medicine would evolve slower, no cauterization to stop bleeding. Healing herbs would dominate, knowledge passed through generations quietly. Tools would stay primitive, knives of flint and bone only. Hunting tactics would rely on daylight ambushes, never night stalks. Fire-free societies would value warmth, developing thick furs as armor. Communication would be visual, hand signs replacing smoky signals. Travel maps would be etched in stone, never illuminated by torchlight. Fishing would be daylight only, nets cast under bright skies. Cooking would remain a raw art, preserving flavors of nature. Food storage would be limited, no smoke to cure meat. Preservation would rely on drying under sun, vulnerable to rain. Societies would develop strong communal shelters, protecting against cold. Nighttime would be a time of danger, not comfort. Children would be taught to move quickly before darkness falls. Stories of fire would be legends, never lived experiences. Of dragons would lack flame, focusing on thunder. Technology would stagnate, no furnace to forge stronger weapons. Conflict would be limited, as weapons stay brittle and fragile. Peaceful trade would dominate, as war lacks fire-powered armaments. Exploration would be cautious, night journeys avoided like deadly traps. Stars would become maps, guiding travelers across endless horizons. Seasonal migrations would follow sun patterns, never fire festivals. Survival skills would emphasize insulation, not firemaking, and rapid shelter construction. Clans would compete for sunlight, fighting for the brightest clearings. Fireless nights would inspire poetry about cold and endless dark. Artisans would master stone carving, creating intricate reliefs without heat. Music instruments would be made of wood, never charred for. Tone. Ceramics would never exist, pottery remaining crude and unbaked. Containers would be woven baskets, leaking but usable for transport. Trade routes would be short, limited by perishable raw foods. Economy would be barter-based, no metal coins ever minted. Leadership would revolve around hunters skilled in daylight ambushes. Chiefs would be chosen for endurance against cold, not fire mastery. Societal rituals would honor sunrise, thanking the sun for warmth. Evening prayers would be silent, no flame to flicker. Night watches would be replaced by rotating daylight shifts. Caves would become sacred, offering natural shelter from cold. Fireless would teach caution, warning against darkness itself. Legends would speak of a lost fire, a forgotten gift. Explorers would dream of distant lands where warmth glows. Ancient ruins would be cold stone, no charred remnants. Archaeologists would find tools untouched by fire, frozen in time. Scientists would study how life survived without combustion for thousands of generations. We would marvel at human resilience, thriving in perpetual chill. Innovation would focus on insulation, not ignition, and thermal retention methods. Clothing would evolve into layered fur, thick wool, and oil-coated hides. Housing would be earth-dug, retaining heat through massive walls. Communities would gather at sunrise, sharing fresh catches before darkness. Evening meals would consist of raw fish, fruits, and nuts. Health would suffer from cold stress, leading to shorter lifespans. Medicine would rely on herbal warmth, using roots that generate heat. Fireless world would spark imagination, prompting us to cherish fire today. Our modern comforts seem miraculous against an endless cold night. Remember the gift of fire, the spark that changed humanity. Without it, we would still be wandering in shadows. So next time you light a candle, appreciate the ancient triumph. Fire gave us warmth, food, metal, and stories that endure. Imagine the world without it, and you'll never take it for granted. Now, picture the night sky, untouched by fire's glow, each night a cold void. It would be a silent, cold canvas of stars. Our ancestors chose fire, and civilization never looked back. That single spark set humanity on a path toward light. From darkness emerges progress, thanks to that first flame. We honor that fire, the cornerstone of our advancement. And we imagine a world where that cornerstone never stood. A stark reminder of how fragile our comforts truly are. So cherish the warmth, the glow, the crackle of fire. It fuels not just our meals, but our dreams. Without fire, humanity would still be hunting shadows in the endless night, fearing every rustle. Our story reminds us why progress matters, even the smallest flame. What if we had never discovered fire? We would still be cold. But thanks to fire, we turned night into day, and turned stone into steel, darkness into art, and imagination into civilization. So the next time you feel the heat, remember the spark. It is the same fire that once saved our ancestors, and it continues to light our path forward into the unknown horizons of tomorrow. Imagine the silence of a world without fire, where each night is a cold void. The darkness would be unbroken, a canvas for fear. Our ancestors would never have gathered around stories, just whispered winds. Without fire, the concept of home would be different. It would be a shelter from cold, not a hearth. The word home would echo with survival, not comfort. Our language would lack words like flame or ignite. We would describe warmth only as a fleeting sunrise, and the notion of colds would dominate every season. Winter would be relentless, stretching into endless cycles with no fire to break its grip. Our ancestors would develop thick fur cloaks, the first fashion trend. They would trade skins, not metal, as valuable commodities. Economics would revolve around warmth, not wealth and survival, shaping societies differently. Technology would advance in insulation, not combustion, leading to breakthroughs in thermal fabrics. Buildings would be earth-covered, retaining heat through massive walls. Windows would be small, minimizing heat loss during cold nights. Cities would cluster around hot, natural geothermal gifts. Those oases would become sacred, the only source of warmth. Travelers would pilgrimage to them, seeking respite from endless chill. Without fire, art would be carved, not painted with pigments. Colors would come from minerals, ground into powders, applied to skins for